wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera bagi kita semua. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Perkenalkan, saya Ima dari Fungsi Rekrutmen dan Penerimaan Mahasiswa Baru yang akan membantu acara pada hari ini, Jumat 12 Agustus 2022. Dan selamat datang kembali di Faculty Meetup Thunderbird School of Global Management yang diadakan di Universitas Pertamina. So, my name is Ima from Universitas Pertamina. I'll be the MC for today's event. Welcome to Faculty Meetup Thunderbird School of Global Management. So, pertama-tama perkenankan saya terlebih dahulu menyapa. First, I would like to welcome Dr. Joshua or Dr. Joshua Alt, Assistant Professor of Entrepreneurship and Strategy, Thunderbird School of Global Management. And also Pak Yuli from Thunderbird School of Global Management, and also the representative from Thunderbird School of Global Management and Sun Educations. Thank you for coming today. We are very honored to have you here. And telah hadir juga pada pagi hari ini together with us, last but not least, our students, and also new students, and also parents, live in offline at auditorium Universitas Pertamina, and also online in Zoom, through Zoom, and also we also live stream this to our YouTube channels, Universitas Pertamina. So we welcome you all of here. Selamat datang dan terima kasih kepada hadirin yang telah meluangkan waktunya bergabung mengikuti seluruh rangkaian acara hari ini. Baiklah, para hadirin, tanpa mengulur waktu, acara selanjutnya will be the main sessions for today's events. Next will be the main sessions, which is Dr. Joshua Alt. The floor is yours. He will give the presentations. The floor is yours, sirs.
That one there. Hello, how are you guys doing? And how many do we have from home? We have, or that are coming in through Zoom? 30. So we have a really good group. So as she mentioned, my name is Dr. Joshua Alt. I'm a professor of entrepreneurship and strategy, global entrepreneurship and global strategy. And that's going to be very important. I'm going to make a point about that in just a little bit. At the Thunderbird School of Global Management in Phoenix, Arizona. Anybody here been to the US before? Not yet. So we're going to convince you to come. That's what we're doing here today. So I am actually from a city in the United States, originally from a city called Boston. Anybody ever heard of Boston? Do you know where it is? What? Have you heard of Tom Brady?
Massachusetts.
Very good. There was actually a picture up here of New York City. Everybody knows where New York City is, right? Boston is about 3 hours by car, about 3 hours northeast of New York City. Very cold there. And now I live where it's really, really hot in Arizona. I also, just before I begin, I just want to give a quick thank you to everyone for what I understand. This is your summer break, and you've decided to spend your summer break to come and listen to me talk. So I definitely appreciate that. If you have any questions of me, we're going to open it up to questions and answers at the end. But if you have questions that you want to ask while I'm presenting, you can feel free to do it. What I'm going to be doing, we've been mentioning this at the schools that we've been going to. The goal of this presentation is twofold. There's two reasons for doing this presentation. Number one is I'm a professor at the Thunderbird School of Global Management. So a part of this presentation is to convince you to join us. We're going to be talking about the accelerated, or what we call at Arizona State University, the 4+1 program. But for those of you that are not able to do so, still be able to provide some, some learning, some knowledge of what we do at Thunderbird, so you still get some benefit out of this session. So basically, should I just kind of point at you when do we have a clicker, or should I just kind of point when we need? Okay, I'll just point to you when we need to move forward. So okay. I'll just say next slide. Perfect. All right, next slide. There we go. Next slide, please. Thank you. So why do are we going to call it the accelerated program or the 4+1, or does it matter for this session? Or we'll call it the accelerated. On my slides, I have it the 4+1, but we'll call it the accelerated program. So what the accelerated program is, have you guys heard of the accelerated program? Or you're coming into this brand new? So what this is, and Thunderbird is building agreements with universities all over the world, including right here in Indonesia, where the way that it works is that you study at your school, then the simplest form of it, in your final year, you start taking classes both at the undergraduate level and at the graduate level with the Thunderbird School of Global Management. So you do that in your 4th year as an undergraduate student. And then in your 5th year, you would spend 1 year with the Thunderbird faculty. And when you're finished, you have both a bachelor's degree and a master's degree. And it's joint with this university and with our university. So it's a really great opportunity. People, I teach quite a bit in the undergraduate program, and I have students ask me very frequently, well, what's the benefit of doing, say, the 4+1 program versus other approaches to going on and getting a master? Do we have students here? Do you have a plan to go on for a master's degree? Is this something that you've thought about, or I'm getting some blank stare. Have you guys considered going on for graduate programs, or to some degree? Okay, you have. This is actually a very advantageous way to do it, in my view. Students ask me all the time, they say, what would be the advantage to doing this rather than graduating with our undergraduate degree, going out and getting a job, and then going back and getting a master's degree, which is a more traditional way of doing it. The answer to that, I actually have, in my own work experience, I worked in, for corporations before I went back to get my PhD. And the advantage that the 4+1 or the accelerated program would have, I do have students that look at the accelerated program and they say, well, if I do that, will I get these really big jobs at graduation that the other students that already have like 10 years of work experience, plus they're going back and getting their master's degree. Well, I mean, that would be a little bit tough to do because, they do have like 10 years of work experience and things like that. The biggest advantage of this accelerated program, in my view, is that it removes the barriers to your professional career advancement. So I'll explain a little bit. I'll tell you how things worked when I was working in corporate America, and then how this kind of helps you to be able to manage your career. So when I was finishing school, there were corporations that would hire students right out of their undergraduate program, and they hire them into what are called entry-level positions. So you start out at a basic level, usually that's commensurate, that's comparable to the education that you have. So you're not gonna start out at a company like flipping hamburgers necessarily, but it would be, for the degree that you have, it would be considered an entry-level position. But then what happens is that as you start building your career, you get to a point where your manager pulls you aside and says, if you are interested in going any further in this career, you have to have a master's degree. And I decided to go straight through. So I already had my master's degree when I started working for a corporation, but I had friends that didn't have one. So what happens is that they get to that point in their career where they're told, you cannot get another advancement. You cannot get another promotion at this corporation until you have a master's degree. So what they would do is they would have to go back to school at that point. And a lot of them would do, part-time programs, online, all of these kinds of things. And so they have to balance, their work, they're still working 40, 50, 60, maybe even more hours a week for the company. Then they have to put in 10, 20 hours a week for their education, for their schooling. And then on top of that, by this point, a lot of them are married, a lot of them are having children. And so they have to carve out time to spend with their family as well. And a lot of times when they're doing this, they can only go to school part-time. So it could take 3, 4, even I've seen people that have even taken 5 years. So as far as their career goes, they get told that they have to get a master's degree. It takes them 5 years before they can actually get to that point and get the next program. For this one, by doing it by just adding 1 year to your education and just moving straight through, it is true. It's still going to be a little bit tough to compete with someone that has a master's degree and 10 years of experience. But what it does is it eliminates that barrier. When your manager comes to you and says, if you want this next promotion, you have to have a master's degree to do it. And you can say, well, as luck would have it, I already do. And that is a huge advantage. It won't take you the 5 years to complete that it's going to take some of your other colleagues, some of your coworkers. The second reason why, that's the question of why would an accelerated master's degree be beneficial? The second question would be, why would an accelerated master's degree with Thunderbird? Why Thunderbird? What would be the point in coming to Thunderbird? And the reason for that is what Thunderbird really does is we are a school of global management. So we will take whatever education that you already have. And I don't know, what are you guys studying, like mining or extractives? Does this school kind of specialize in those things? Engineering, whatever it is that you're studying, Thunderbird can take that and can add a global mindset to it. So what does that mean? Thunderbird can add a global mindset. So whatever it is that you're doing, we will take it and we will make it global. Let's go to the next slide, and then I'll come back to this one. The last point I'm going to make is that you should come to Thunderbird because it's also a lot of fun. We have a great time. We enjoy our students. We spend so much time hanging out with them. And in the classroom, we really like to have a good time. And we also, it's rigorous. We have a great education, but it's a lot of fun. So if we go to the next slide. But the second point, so the first point is it removes the barriers to your professional development. You can go out and get your job with that ceiling eliminated that you can go. The second one is that if you take whatever education you have and you add a global mindset to it, it will open your eyes to opportunities that other people cannot see. This is what global does. It opens your eyes to it. So let's go to the next slide. I really like this next slide, and I've been using this at all of the schools that I've been presenting at. So the next slide. So this is a summary of what a global education is, a global business. You're all business students, right? Business students. What a global business education does and how it's different from other types of learning. And I think you're going to be able to start seeing how this creates opportunity. So if you go to most business schools, every business school on earth will study the firm, studies the company. That's what business schools do, right? So it studies like, how do you bring your accounting systems in line with with the goals of the organization? How do you create a strategy? How do you create a top-level marketing campaign? These are all things that you'll study at any business school in the world. So that's what I show here with these circles is that's what they study. A global mindset, though, is a recognition that whatever is done within the firm is connected with what's going on at the next higher level. So the next higher level to the firm is the industry. Things that are going on in the industry can directly impact your ability to execute all of those things I just talked about in the individual company. So as a good example of this, does anybody here, you guys probably aren't old enough. Maybe some of my colleagues that came in with me might be old enough. Is anybody here old enough to remember when you actually had to go to a video store and rent videos from the video store? That was a thing in Indonesia, right? So did they have like Blockbuster Video here, or was it different brands? It's illegal here? Oh, so in the okay. So before the illegal downloads in the United States, and I would assume here as well, you would actually go to a video store and you would rent a video, and you would go and you would pay for it, and they'd let you have it for one. They used to. They don't have those anymore. This is exactly my point. They're not old enough to remember that. They go all the way back to the illegal downloading era. So it went video stores, illegal downloading, and then Netflix. So you look at the companies. But this is a part of my point. These companies don't exist anymore. Not because they were poorly managed. These were some of the best managed companies that existed. Blockbuster Video was an exceptionally run company. But because of things going on at the industry level, because Netflix came along and made these video rental stores obsolete, so they weren't even valuable anymore, the industry itself changed. A lot of business schools they just teach what's going on in the firm. Then in a global management degree, we even go 2 levels above that. We say firms and industries. So that's what these squiggly lines are showing, is that what's going on at that level is important to know, but then also its connection to the level above it. So firms and industries are then nested or embedded in their country environment, doing business. And we're going to look at an example here in just a minute. Doing business in Indonesia is clearly different than doing business in the United States. There's more state-owned firm. We've been having this conversation. So I've been spending a lot of time with Yuli, who is our representative. He splits his time between Phoenix and Jakarta. And we've just been talking about some of the differences in the business environment. Family business. There's so little research on family business because we don't really have these in the United States. We do, to some degree, but nothing like you have here in Indonesia. And so if you're going to be looking at doing business, state-owned enterprises, something, again, in the United States, the government has put in a concerted effort to not have ownership of its companies. So these are differences across different countries. And so the question is how do these differences then influence your ability to make money, your ability to be competitive? And then finally, all of this connects up to the global level. There are things going on in the world today that will also influence your business. For example, there was a very large country that just a few months ago decided to invade another country. And there is war raging in that region right now in Eastern Europe. It's Russia invaded Ukraine. And this is disrupting food supplies. This is making it, I don't know if Indonesian companies, but American companies had to face the decision, do we face sanctions or do we just pull out of Russia? So all of these American companies, McDonald's, Starbucks, KFC, all of these companies that operate in Russia had to make the decision, are we going to do the right thing or are we going to do the thing that makes us the most money? Most of them have pulled out of Russia as a result. These are things going on at the global level that influence your ability to do business. This is what we add as a Thunderbird faculty, is this global mindset. So you come to us because it opens up career opportunities. You come to us. I don't know if we're going to get to the third one. We'll kind of see. Come to us because of this global mindset. Now, why does a global mindset matter? Why does it matter? I mean, you could say, well, and in fact, I would imagine that if you go to some of the faculty at a lot of the other business schools, especially in the United States, they'd say, you know what? It takes us so much time to learn this part of it. Why would you even bother learning the other part? And the answer that we give at Thunderbird is that you do that because a global mindset will open your eyes to opportunities that are not seen by people that don't have that same global mindset. I am going to give examples today from entrepreneurship because that's what I teach, entrepreneurship at the Thunderbird School. But the same principle can be applied to strategy. It can be applied to marketing. It can be applied to finance. It could be applied to specific, like the extractives industry, to specific industries. It can be applied to anything. People who have a global mindset will recognize and have the ability to pursue opportunities that are not seen by those who have a strictly local mindset. So let's go to the next slide and I'll explain what that means. I am going to do this in entrepreneurship and I'm going to provide examples. But again, if you're interested in strategy, come to us because the principles are still the same. If you're interested in marketing, come to us because the principles are still the same. You will see these opportunities because you have a global. This is just examples out of entrepreneurship. By the way, do we have anybody here that might be interested in entrepreneurship as a career? Anyone from home? Do you have any ideas of some things you might want to do or? You like what? Coffee? Coffee. Nice. Always opportunities in coffee. Actually, I had an example here from, I'll provide the example when we get to it, how a global mindset in coffee led to opportunity. So do we have any social entrepreneurs? Anybody interested in social entrepreneurship here? All right, we're going to take a look at this. Now, again, for those that don't have a global mindset, I have actually had debates and I've talked to other professors who teach entrepreneurship, and you can tell the difference between those that have a global. I was trained in global management. My degree, a lot of professors that teach international business or global management, they have their degree in a very traditional business field, and then they move into the international space out of interest. Thunderbird is not really interested in those kinds of professors. They want people who are international and global at their core. I received my doctoral training in international entrepreneurship. And so I have these debates with some of the other professors who teach entrepreneurship. And I say, well, what do you think it means when we say global entrepreneurship? And they say, well, that's easy. What that means is you go around the world, you bring aspiring entrepreneurs to the United States, preferably to Silicon Valley, which is, where is Silicon Valley? Do you guys know? Silicon Valley, have you heard the term? Silicon Valley, where is it? It's in California. It's on the west coast of the United States. My sister and brother-in-law actually live in Silicon Valley. My brother-in-law is one of the typical Silicon Valley type people. And he would probably fall into this too, where you say, okay, what is global entrepreneurship? And they say, well, that's easy. That is just taking people from all over the world, bringing them to the United States, preferably to Silicon Valley, teaching them how entrepreneurship works there, and then sending them back home to do it in their own country. So for example, with a group like this, for a lot of people, global entrepreneurship would mean we come to Jakarta, we pick you guys up, we bring you to Silicon Valley, and we teach you how we do it in America. That is not global entrepreneurship. I've spent my entire career trying to explain why that is not global entrepreneurship. And I've had debates with a lot of professors as to why that's not global entrepreneurship. Instead, global entrepreneurship is the connection to the previous slide to create this definition. So global entrepreneurship is the ability to combine an entrepreneurial or innovative, because the name of this session is innovation, entrepreneurship and innovation. So global entrepreneurship is the ability to combine an entrepreneurial or innovative mindset with a global mindset to develop and pursue opportunities. So when you start adding, so any entrepreneurial program is going to teach you the entrepreneurial mindset. But when you start adding a global mindset, all of a sudden, opportunities start appearing for you as an entrepreneur. And I'm going to give some examples right now. And by the way, like I keep saying, this is just an example. You could apply this to so many different disciplines. I'm applying it to entrepreneurship, but you could look at it and you could say a great marketing director, even if they're not launching their own firm, a great marketing director is still kind of an entrepreneur. So he's still doing the same thing. A great strategist, a director, an executive in a corporation is still basically a type of an entrepreneur. And so this ability to combine your innovative mindset with your global mindset creates opportunities that other people can't see, and you can benefit from them. Let's go to the next slide. So I'm going to highlight 3. I tried in yesterday's presentation to do 4, and that just turned out to be too many with the amount of time that we have. What are we looking at? About 30 more minutes? We're going to about 10, and then we'll do Q&A. 30 minutes. Okay.
Yes.
So there are 3. I'm going to highlight. There's more than this. There's a lot more than this. But basically, this gets to my point that once you add a global mindset to whatever it is that you're doing, it creates opportunities for you. There are at least 3 types of entrepreneurs that are doing exactly this. We can identify them. I have actual examples of them that I can give to them. There are at least 3 types of entrepreneurs that are doing exactly that, combining a global mindset with an entrepreneurial mindset to create opportunities. We call the first one the cross-border arbitragers. I'm going to explain in just a minute what that means, what an arbitrager is. We call the second one the cross-border or cross-national. This is the cross-national replication business model. We can come up with a simpler term than that. We can call them, these are the cross-national or cross-border replicators. And the third one is what we're going to call the born global firms. Again, individuals who combine a global mindset with a entrepreneurial mindset to create opportunities that others just simply don't see. Let's start with the first one. So if we go to the next slide. Let's start with the first type of global entrepreneur. The first type is called the cross-border, international, cross-national, whatever you want to call it, the cross-border arbitragers. Does anybody know what arbitrage is? Has anybody ever heard that term before? It is French, so you're learning a little bit of French today too. So how about that, right? Has anybody at home, has anybody ever heard the term arbitrage or arbitrager? Does anybody know what this is? No one? Okay. Basically what arbitrage is, this is a term that comes out of finance. What it means, it comes from the French word arbitrate. So we all know that word, like you go and you have a meeting and you have an arbitrator, the person that's the go-between. That's where the term comes from, but it doesn't mean exactly that. What arbitrage means, it comes from finance. And this is when you purchase an asset in one market and you sell the exact same asset in another market for a higher price. We all have examples. So we actually do this. We actually do this in finance quite a bit. So, if you're buying like currencies in one market and selling the same currency in another market, that's called arbitrage. But what we've discovered is that entrepreneurs are doing this as well. And I have hundreds of examples of this. They are buying products or services in one market and selling it in another market. And one of the key distinguishers of these markets are national boundaries. You can go to one country, you can purchase an asset in that country and sell it in another country for a different price. Let me give some examples of this. So one is an example of one I've just read about, and then one is an example of a student that I work with that actually does exactly this. So let's go to the next slide. So radiology. Who knows what is radiology? What do radiologists do? They what? They're a physician. What do they specialize in? So they do x-rays, they do MRIs, they do these images of what's inside. Yeah, so I think this one is an MRI. They do images of what's going on inside the body. Now, here's the issue. This is what these entrepreneurs, these global entrepreneurs figured out. So in the United States, a radiologist can easily be paid $500,000 a year. Sounds really good, right? We all wish that we were making $500,000 a year. They are extremely highly paid. This is an issue because it's quite expensive for insurance companies and for patients that have to pay this money to these doctors who are getting paid $500,000 a year to basically look at pictures. What these entrepreneurs figured out is that pictures can be sent anywhere in the world for free, instantaneously. It can be reduced to electrons and sent to other parts of the world. And they further figured out that the exact same doctors in India are doing the exact same, equally qualified, went to just as good universities, and they're making closer to $30,000 a year. So what they're doing, what these innovative entrepreneurs, these global entrepreneurs are doing, is they're going to India, they're hiring these doctors in India and saying, look, we know that the average salary in India for radiologists is $30,000. We could pay you $60,000 if you want to work and take images that come from the United States, which is still almost a tenth of what they pay American doctors to do the same thing. They can send the images to India. The doctor in India looks at it and says, yes, this person has a broken bone, or yes, this person could be at risk for a stroke, or whatever it is, sends the diagnosis back to the United States, and the company, the entrepreneurial company, makes money on the difference because they have that global mindset. Now, there's challenges. The issue with entrepreneurship is not just recognizing the idea, but also being able to implement it. So, for example, in the United States, a part of the reason why doctors there are paid so much money is because you have to be licensed in the United States. So they're coming up with clever workarounds for that. So for instance, they're taking doctors from India, they're flying them to Los Angeles for 6 weeks of training so that they have that US license, but will still be able to charge a lot less for their diagnoses. Another example of it, so these are called cross-border arbitrage. Oh, by the way, what's the asset that they're buying in another market? So a cross-border arbitrager is someone that buys an asset in one market, sells it in another market for a higher price. What are they buying and selling in this case? What is it? It's a price? Oh, supply? Not supplies, not supplies. Oh, service. Okay, I am so sorry. Services. It's, yeah, I would say that too. It's labor. They're buying, which we could classify labor as a service. They're buying labor in the Indian market, selling that labor in the US market, and making they're saving their customers costs, but also making money on for providing that service to them. Let's give another example of these cross-border arbitrageurs. This was a student that I actually taught at a university for about 6 years in Canada. You guys know where Canada is? Canada is it's above the US. A lot of people think we're the same country, even though we're not. Do people do that with Indonesia and Malaysia? They say, oh, are you guys just the same country? So people do that to us with Canada. They say, and in fact, the Canadians hate it because anytime a country says, oh, we're going to put sanctions on the United States, they just put them on Canada too, even if Canada didn't do anything. So But I was teaching in Canada, and I had a student by the name of Kyle Vacco, and he was getting ready to graduate. He was about at the same stage in his career as you guys are right at this point. He was getting ready to graduate, and they came to him and they said, when you go out on interviews, you have to look sharp. You have to look good. You have to look professional. Have you guys heard this already? Like, have your family members told you this? You have to look professional. You have to look like, what's the saying? Don't dress for the job you have, dress for the job you want, right? So he was told this, and he was told, you need to have a custom tailored suit in order to go when you go out and start looking for a job. He said, all right. So he went out and asked a tailor how much it would cost for a custom suit. And they told him it would be around $2,000 because you have to hire the tailor to come and do all your measurements and build the suit around you. It's called bespoke. The term for that is these are bespoke suits. And he said, I'm a college student. I don't even have a job right now. I'm making $0 a year. Where am I supposed to come up with $2,000 for a suit? So you need money to get the job, but you need the job to have the money. Do you guys see the vicious circle in there? It's crazy, isn't it? And so he's like, what am I supposed to do? But then it hit him because he was going through our global management program. And he said, well, why don't I start applying some of the concepts that I've learned in my class, and I can create a global company. If I have this problem myself, there's probably a lot of other people that do as well. So what did he do? He went to China, and he found tailors in China, very similar to the previous example, who were willing to build these custom suits, but because the cost of a tailor in China is lower than it is in the United States, he could hire tailors in China to make the exact same suits for $300 to $400 rather than for $2,000. The company still exists today. It's very successful. It's called Indochino. So if you guys want a very nice suit, I guess there's two things I'm doing. Well, I guess three things. Talking about entrepreneurship, convincing you to come to Thunderbird, and selling suits. So if you want a suit, you can get one because what you do is you go on the website, you put in all your measurements. He sends these to his again, these tailors are just as good as the ones that we have in the United States, and they can build him a suit for $400 or $500, some even down to $300 rather than $2,000. And he makes the money on them. So those are the cross-border arbitrageurs. The second type of, so if we go on to the next slide, the second type of global entrepreneur that we teach, and if you come to Thunderbird, we will spend time like explaining how we actually do this. The second type is called the cross-border replicators. These are the people that go out and they find something that works in another country and they bring it home. Is that entrepreneurship? Or is that just copying? Is that just knockoffs? You guys have heard that term, knockoffs? It's a ripoff. You're just stealing someone else's idea. Is that entrepreneurship? Who would say yes? Who would say no? Who's not going to vote? Who's going to sit there and say, I'm going to wait until he actually tells us? It actually turns out that some of the most innovative companies on planet Earth copied their idea from another country. These were global entrepreneurs. So let me give you, well, actually, before we go to the next slide, I'll give you a couple of other examples. Starbucks. Who here has ever heard of Starbucks? Where did they get the idea from? Howard Schultz. He wasn't even the founder of Starbucks. He was an employee at Starbucks. He got the idea. What's that? Italy. He got it from Italy. Do you know the story? What happened? That's exactly what it was. He went to Italy. He was sent to Italy by Starbucks on a marketing trip. He went to his colleagues in Italy. Same thing. I've been going around with Yuli. He'll bring me out and he'll be like, okay, you got to try this. This is our local Indonesia things that we do here. Same thing. He went to Italy. He went to the espresso bars. You guys like espresso? He went to the espresso bars in Italy and he fell in love with it. He went back to Seattle, went to his bosses and said, we have to be doing this. And they said no. So what did he do? He started his own company. It was so successful that within just a few years, he bought the company from the founders of Starbucks. And Starbucks started out, they sold like coffee machines. They didn't sell actual coffee. It was successful. Now, it wasn't easy. He had to figure out, this is why it's entrepreneurial. It's not easy. He has to figure out how to make espresso bars work for the Seattle market, for the US market. And then he had to figure out how to make it work for all the other markets that he's opened Starbucks in as well. I've got another example that's a lot closer to home. Let's go to the next slide. Has anybody here ever heard of Gojek? Has anybody here seen the guys riding around on the scooters? Where did the idea for Gojek come from? Uber. It was Uber. Who came up with the idea first? Uber. They copied Uber. Was it entrepreneurial? I would say absolutely. Uber has tried. Do you guys remember when Uber was in Indonesia? Did anybody even see Uber here? They tried. So have you used Uber in Indonesia? But they're gone now, right? Uber couldn't make it work. Gojek did. So Gojek said, we will go and we will see what they're doing in the United States. And then we will create a uniquely Indonesian version of that. That's where Uber faltered. They didn't know how to make the Uber business model work in Indonesia. Gojek said, I think we can do it. It's still hard, and therefore it's still entrepreneurial. By the way, what was Gojek's big innovation? What did they do to make it work? What's that? So they do food. So they do more services than just the rides. But it's even what they started with. What was it that they started with? That you're absolutely right on that. They said, we think that more, like in the United States, every service that's provided is usually provided by a different company. And we were just having this conversation this morning, Yuli and I were. Whereas in Indonesia, there's more of this idea that if you're going to create a company, you create a company that does lots of different things at the same time. So that's absolutely true. But there's one other innovation that they came up with that Uber couldn't figure out. Because Uber doesn't have the global mindset. It was motorcycles. So when Uber came in, they were trying to replicate the cars, driving around in cars. What Gojek realized is that the problem with that is that the people who are going to be doing the driving in Indonesia are more likely, some have cars, but in Indonesia, they're more likely to have motorcycles than have cars. So they started with the motorcycles and then expanded to cars, whereas Uber started with the cars and then tried to expand to motorcycles, and Gojek had already won by that point. Very entrepreneurial. Let's go to the next slide. The last type that we're going to talk about is something called the born global startups. What some entrepreneurs around the world have started figuring out is that, again, combining this global mindset with the entrepreneurial mindset to create opportunities. What some of these entrepreneurs have started to figure out is that there are products and services for which there is very little local demand, but there would be very high global demand. And so what they're doing, this is a very new phenomenon. It used to be that if you were going to start a company, and I think Gojek would be a good example of this. Where did Gojek start? Here, right? In Indonesia. Where is Gojek now? Are they in Vietnam? Are they in Malaysia? Have they expanded to, do you guys know what countries they've gone into? Singapore. Okay. So that is a traditional form. Now, Gojek's global opportunity came in recognizing how to transfer the Uber model to Indonesia, but they still followed a very traditional entrepreneurial growth pattern where they started in Indonesia, they became very strong in Indonesia, and then they started expanding to other countries in Southeast Asia, Singapore and Vietnam, and some of these countries. There is the third type of entrepreneur that we're looking at today is something called Born Globals. These are companies that recognize, they come up with an idea for a product or service. They recognize that this product or service may not have enough demand in their own home country in order to make it work. But if they go to the global market all at once, they actually can. The reason why this is a new phenomenon is because before the internet really became and telecommunications and transportation, before all of this really became a thing, it was just impossible to, you had to start with your local market. But because of this, we now have companies that from the day they are born are targeting the global market. Let me do one quick example. I didn't make a slide for it, and then we're going to do a little quiz to illustrate this point. Has anybody here heard of a company called Cochlear? Cochlear. Cochlear. Does anybody know what the cochlear is? Do we have anybody that studied human anatomy? It's the bone in your inner ear, right? The cochlear bone. So what Cochlear does is Cochlear produces a product for the severely hearing impaired. And you guys might have seen, I have seen some people that have had, I mean, these are like the most extreme of the hearing impaired. Like, these aren't for people like my mother-in-law, for example. She is in her mid-70s and she is starting to lose her hearing. So she went to the doctor and she got a hearing aid. We've all seen people with hearing aids, right? This is for people that are, this isn't for people that are just losing their hearing like my mother-in-law. This is for people who are profoundly deaf and they can't get, just by amplifying the sound, it doesn't fix things. What Cochlear does is it's a procedure. It's a medical procedure. They actually drill into the bone in your head and they put an implant in there that vibrates the bone, your skull bone, and you're able to hear that way. There are very few people though that actually need this product. Cochlear started in Australia. Australia has a population of what? 35 million people. We have cities in America that are Jakarta is probably, how big is Jakarta? How many million? 15 to 20 million. So the city of Jakarta is almost as large as the entire country of Australia population-wide. So they recognized that there is no way that they could sell these products just to Australia. So from the day they were born, they started selling these products to the global marketplace. So they sell everywhere. They team up with hospitals around the world and they sell. Just some other examples. I'll give some other examples of some Born Globals. We're going to do this as a quiz. I'm going to ask you guys just for fun. So I've put up here on the screen, I have put examples of 4 Born Global businesses. And I want to ask you guys if you know, you guys should have heard of all of these. And I'm going to ask you to tell me where they're from. It used to be that when you would talk about any major startup, the answer usually was that it was from the United States. But today that's not the case. So for example, Skype. Where is Skype from? It is not from the US. You would think so. It sounds like a Silicon Valley firm, but it's not. Skype. What did you, Germany? It's not German. Germany is a major economy. You would think that Germany would be supportive of entrepreneurial startups. I'm going to tell you right now, it's the last one you think of. It is Estonia. Do you guys even know where Estonia is? Estonia. Exactly, right? This tiny country in Eastern Europe. It's by Russia. This tiny country is what we've all heard of Skype, right? We all know what Skype is. It was founded in Estonia. The thing is, it's really interesting too, is it was founded by a Dane and an Estonian in Estonia. All right, let's look at the next one. Spotify. Okay, you guys knew this one. So do we have music fans in here? Spotify started, they recognized that they could target the entire global marketplace all at the same time, and they could make money doing that. So Spotify is out of Sweden. Groupon, do they have Groupon in Indonesia?
Yes, we have.
They do have Groupon in Indonesia. Where is Groupon from? It's tough to know, isn't it? Any guesses? I gave you 5. You could guess from there. Someone on the chat has a guess. Where is Groupon from? Now you're not so sure, are you? What do they say on the chat? Okay, I don't think that was a guess on. Okay. Groupon is from, are you guys ready for this? That one's from the United States. That was the trick question. But you were not sure, were you? You were like, hold on, I thought it was from the United States, but now I don't know. Okay, let's do the last one. Rovio. You might not recognize the company, but you do recognize the product. Angry Birds. You guys remember the Angry Birds craze? Where are Angry Birds from? It's from Finland. Very good. So we did know that one. And you guys actually, if I hadn't just done these two, you guys would have probably guessed United States on this one as well. But the whole point is that we're now seeing the rise in these companies that that don't really have a national presence before they start having a global presence. We only have a couple minutes left. So the last point I was going to make is, so the first point, the first reason, let's go to the next slide. There was another activity I was going to do, but because we only have about 4 minutes left. And I'm gonna, I'm not gonna spend time on it because we're just running out of time. The last point that I want to make with Thunderbird. So the reason to do this accelerated program, I'm just going to go back and reiterate it, over and over and over again. Why do we want to see you come to us? Why do we want to see you start joining into this accelerated program while you're students here in Jakarta, and then transitioning and joining us at Arizona State University? Is because, number one, it provides you opportunities. It breaks down those barriers for you to advance your careers. Number two is because a global mindset, and I gave you examples from entrepreneurship, but you can make these same arguments for any discipline. A global mindset makes you extremely valuable as an entrepreneur or as an employee. And the third reason why we want you at Thunderbird is because we just have a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun with our students. I have had professors who have said, when I teach, I try to make my classes as boring as possible, because you can't have, if your students are being entertained, they're not being educated. We do not have that philosophy at Thunderbird. We have the philosophy that if you come to us, we have the philosophy that the more enjoyment you get in the classroom, the more you're probably going to remember. And so we go out of our way, like, for example, this little quiz that I just gave you. I do those kinds of things all the time in my classroom to increase the enjoyment and the fun of being in one of my classes at Thunderbird. So if these 3 things are things that appeal to you, the ability to advance your career without having to take time out of your life later on, the ability to add a global mindset, and the desire to have fun in your education, then we would love to see you in the accelerated program at Thunderbird. And with that, I will turn it over to questions and answers.
Thank you very much, Dr. All. It's very insightful presentations. Thank you very much. So perhaps can I have some more applause to Dr. All? Standing applause. Thank you very much. And is there any questions from audience? Audience? Okay.
So, and we should say this. So if it's questions about things related to my presentation,
Mm-hmm.
I will field those. If it's things related to the actual dynamics and logistics of the program, we have some additional representatives here from Thunderbird and Arizona State University who will have all the answers to those questions as well.
Sure, sure. Okay. So thank you, sir, for the explanations. Next, your name and your question, please.
Hello, hello, Mister. My name Ihsan. I want to question about the university, about the Thunderbird. How much does living cost in there?
That is going to be, who wants to take
Okay.
that one?
Thank you.
I think his interest to study in the Thunderbird.
Mungkin saya jawab pakai bahasa Indonesia aja. I think I prefer just like answer the questions in Indonesia. Jadi kalau untuk living cost-nya sendiri depend sih Pak. Cuman kalau misalkan untuk dari perkenalkan nama saya Tiffany, saya representatif dari Arizona State University based di Jakarta. Jadi kalau untuk living cost sendiri sih probably kalau saya bisa bilang kalau sebagai students pasti definitely sebagai first year kita akan sarankan untuk living di on campus kita. Untuk student accommodation sendiri range-nya itu kurang lebih 7 sampai 11.000 untuk one academic year. Jadi in total kalau untuk daya living cost-nya sendiri kurang lebihnya 22 sampai 24 ribuan untuk 1 tahunnya. Itu udah termasuk dengan accommodation and the rest of the living expenses outside dari student housing-nya sendiri. Gitu. Apakah ada pertanyaan lagi? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Iya.
Dari S. Yes.
Dari US.
Dari S.
Dari US ya betul.
Yeah. Is there any questions regarding? Okay. Name and questions, yeah.
I want to answer. My name is Habibi. And I want to
Habibi?
ask, is there any scholarship for Indonesian student?
So for Thunderbird, I think I would just explain generally. For ASU in general, if we're actually looking for, in Indonesia, kalau misalkan untuk dari programnya sendiri, kita ada beberapa range-nya, jadi akan tergantung faculty-nya sendiri. Kalau untuk full scholarship dari ASU, aside from faculty dari Thunderbird, kita belum ada. Jadi kalau untuk Thunderbird sendiri, yes, they do have full scholarship. Itu biasanya hanya start di fall. Itu under namanya share fellowship, sorry. Jadi itu memang targeting untuk developing countries dan Indonesia definitely salah satunya. Itu ada, definitely ada kuotanya. Jadi biasanya kita akan sarankan 1 tahun sebelum programnya mulai, which is kurang lebihnya di bulan-bulan sekarang ini. Kalau misalkan memang targeting untuk fall 2023 itu sudah apply. Jadi untuk evaluation-nya sendiri itu bakal otomatis. Jadi akan ada listnya, jadi akan ada pertanyaannya, ada interviewnya juga, dan basically untuk IELTS dan academic transcript juga definitely akan necessary untuk disubmit upon application.
Okay, thanks, Kak.
Ya, terima kasih.
So lastly, last question for audience here in offline.
Or
Sir?
if we're actually in any questions from
questions?
the online audience.
Yes, I think there is. Can you please show it off?
Oh, okay.
What
That's
is
quite
it?
a lot.
Can a combinations of 2 or more field produce more creative
worries.
innovation for a company? So he said like there are 2 field of company. Can it combine and make an innovations more productive? Is it like that? Around
I
kind of
think
that.
this question refers to you.
Mhm.
So, apakah kombinasi antara 2 bidang atau lebih bisa menghasilkan? So, if they're actually trying to combine like 2 industries, it actually will be more innovative and productive in terms of the business perspective wise?
Yeah. So if I understand the question correctly, unfortunately, we didn't have time to to do. There's an activity I did with the group yesterday that I just didn't have time to get to because I was going more in the direction. We're recruiting you guys for the accelerated program, so I wanted to go into the details of what we actually provide at Thunderbird. But this is actually something that we teach at Thunderbird. And if we had enough time, I would have actually done an activity around this. So what entrepreneurship is, I mean, one way that you can define, or one way that we can identify entrepreneurship, is it's exactly that. It's the ability to combine things in new ways that other people just don't see. I think Uber and Gojek is a perfect example of this. Uber didn't really have a global mindset. So when they came to Jakarta, all that they did was try to replicate the Uber model in Jakarta, Indonesia, and it didn't work. What Gojek did that was so innovative is they took the Uber model, they combined it with what makes Indonesia work, and ended up with something that was brand new. You can make the exact same argument. So this is entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is the recombination of things that might be isolated beforehand. You combine them together to create this opportunity. And that can be anything. In the Gojek example, it was the combination of the Uber model with the Indonesia marketplace, or the Indonesia culture, or the way of doing business in Indonesia. You can make the same argument with industries. The combination, the recombination of things that are not previously being put together right now, if there is a problem that solves, that is entrepreneurship. Now, we do see businesses that will combine, industries and businesses that will combine for other reasons, such as to create like market dominance or to reduce costs or things like that. But innovative entrepreneurs, if they see new ways to combine almost anything to actually, and I think that's the key part, if it actually solves a problem. We see a lot of things out there that don't solve a problem. And I can give you hundreds of examples of entrepreneurs that combine things together and it ended up solving no problems. But if you can find two things that are not currently being used together, recombine them in a new way, and actually use that to solve a problem, that's entrepreneurship. I guess, good examples of this. Netflix combine the Hollywood studios with the internet. That's entrepreneurship. There's dozens of other examples out there. So yeah, very good question.
Thanks, Josh, for the answers. And for the next question, is there any other questions from
Any other?
Yeah.
Hello, sir.
Hello?
We talk a lot, and then I want to ask something. Is there any class that other than global entrepreneurship that we can, such as we in Pertamina is learning energy-based industry. So, is there any class or something like that we can learn to in Thunderbird?
So I will tell you right now. So energy is not necessarily my area of expertise. However, we have a lot of faculty at Thunderbird who specialize in the energy sector. Sadly, one of them is retiring this year. Did you know Mike Moffat? So he's retiring, but we have other ones that specialize in energy. And the other thing that we emphasize at Thunderbird is that if there is anything that we don't have in the Thunderbird school itself, they do at ASU. Thunderbird is part of ASU. And so we actually will encourage our students when they come in and they do an education with Thunderbird, if there's something like that they're very interested in, and it's not something that our faculty necessarily, like I said, I'm a little bit concerned because Mike Moffat is retiring this year and that he was our energy expert. I don't know if we're getting another energy expert, and I think we have a few. But the point is that we have some of the top engineering schools on the planet at ASU. We have the School of the Futures at ASU that study the future of energy, like, green energy and things like that. We have a school of sustainability that's studying very similar things. What other schools would be?
Engineering, we do have it. Sustainability, as mentioned. I think there's like a new faculty that actually just came out with, because like I just visited the ASU a couple months ago, and then they actually just come out with a new something sustainability related faculty. I'm not really good at sustainability. I'm not really kind of like a science student. So yeah, but we do have it at ASU. Jadi kalau untuk dari dari Thunderbird sendiri memang kita belum ada, karena kan ini salah satu fakultinya kalau untuk dari ASU. Tapi any other faculties that actually aside from ASU, yes we do. From Thunderbird, sorry, yes we do have it. Kalau misal, I think what he's actually asking about, is there any kind of like specialization that could be actually combined with global entrepreneurship that under Thunderbird? I think we do have one of the specialization, right?
Yeah. So I think if you basically like global management, like if that give you global leadership. Global leadership.
Global leadership,
There we go.
global management, and global business. That's combined, and then you can provide. Basically, you can choose concentration after that, whether you choose the sustainability or renewable energy, and then like digital transformation. Even like for us, we have we call it the global oil and gas management. We have certification for that. Like you from the kind of like upstream until downstream, or the future of the oil and gas industry. Whether you go to renewable energy, to the power, that's kind of like the path that you want to take. If basically if you go from the engineering at Pertamina University, kind of the option, but then the goal is to provide you the global entrepreneurship, global business, global management, combining what you have in your undergrad degree. So jadi S1-nya apapun ketika masuk di Thunderbird itu akan kamu akan dapat skillnya tuh leadership, management, business, plus konsentrasi yang kamu mau ambil dalam industri yang kamu mau capai di situ.
Dan mungkin kalau aku bisa tambahin, karena untuk dari Thunderbird sendiri ini kan fokusnya adalah global leadership. Jadi basically any kind of industry yang memang students yang mau pursue afterwards, definitely mereka bisa cater. Dan untuk Thunderbird ini mungkin kalau aku bisa bilang juga ini adalah a very intimate faculty, di mana memang kalau misalkan students memang ada having any idea yang memang kamu build, that's definitely possible. Jadi akan sangat-sangat di-guide oleh faculty dari Thunderbird itu sendiri gitu. Betul ya Pak Yuli, harusnya benar ya Pak ya?
Sudah menjawab ya pertanyaannya? Okay, thank you. So, is there any questions to the audience? Okay. Wait ya. Wait. Main banyak nih pertanyaan.
Thank you. Good morning, sir. And my name is Rival Joga. I want to ask for you. What is the biggest challenge as a global entrepreneur? Thank you.
The biggest challenge of the global entrepreneur is the execution. So I actually teach this in the class, that we all have that relative, right? That says, oh, hey, I came up with the idea for Uber before there was Uber, or I came up with the idea for, we're sitting around like at the holidays with our family, and somebody says, wow, this company that I already had that idea they stole that idea from me. And I guess the question is are they lying to you? No, probably not. There is a good chance that they actually came up with that idea. But the issue is that ideas are, so what I spent time doing today was talking about where people came up with the ideas. We can come up with ideas, all the time. I mean, how many times have we been like taking a shower and suddenly it hits us? Oh my gosh, I just had an idea for $1 million company, right? The difference between the entrepreneurs and all the rest of us schlucks is that they actually go out and make it happen. And that's the biggest obstacle is transferring an idea to actual execution. That is where 99% of the ventures just never get off the ground. Now, we can say, well, what is it that actually leads them to fail? There's questions, but in my view, that's a form of failure. If you never do it, then that itself is a form of failure. So just getting to that execution stage is where, in my view, the vast majority of entrepreneurial ventures fail. Great question.
Thank you very much. Is the answers okay for you, Yoga? Okay, yeah, answer the question, your questions, yeah? Is there any questions? Oh,
From the
okay.
online, no more.
Ah, yeah, no more, I
Oh.
guess.
Yeah, are there any online?
But then I would like to greet Pak Budi. He is the our vice rector of academics and students affairs. I would probably, you haven't met him before, so I would like to have him honor to have some speech, short speech, before we close the session.
So thank you very much, Professor Alt, for the time and also for the insight. I heard some of it. Sorry, I came late because I have to open an event for students similar with this. We encourage our students to do the social entrepreneurship to the surrounding communities where they live, not where they study, but where they live. That's very important. So it's a 3-4 months program that we support, we fund for them. And number 2, of course, thank you very much for information for the Thunderbird. We do this also live in YouTube, meaning that it will be recorded. People can watch at any time. I know its time is not perfect, but we put special effort so that the people who, students or future students who cannot come today can watch the recordings. So that's a point. And of course, as we know, Thunderbird is a great school. It's in fact it's the best school in business. So I think this is a great opportunities for everybody in Universitas Pertamina, existing students and the future students to know and then to decide. Some of them already asked about the expenses, the tuition and everything. I believe there are more questions to be asked by them. And then maybe this, I hope this is not the last session. We may have other sessions. Who knows, they want to ask more details, parents and everything. I think Pak Yuli already attended the online session at the time. Pak Yuli was in the quarantine, right, Pak Yuli? More parents and students. Usually it's on Saturday that we can gather more people. So that's okay. So we recorded this and they can watch at any time. If they have questions, they can ask us and then we can refer to you. Once again, thank you very much for the session, and then hope this benefits for the audience, students and future students. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pak Budi. Thank you for your time. Last but not least, I would like to have some summary from you, Dr. Joshua, and all of kind of like a summary for and also motivations talk to students in offline or online. Can you give?
All right, motivation. Actually, I can do this directly from the last question that was asked, which I think was a really good question. I think that in life, the thing that separates those that are successful and those that always talk about being successful is that those that are successful are the ones that when they've made the decision that they want to do something, they move forward. In fact, at Arizona State University, we have an office. It's called it's the Entrepreneurship and Innovation Office. Do you remember the donor that it's named after? What is it? Sorry. So there's that one too, but at Arizona, so in the broader ASU community, there's a second entrepreneurship center. Anyway, it's called the Entrepreneurship and Innovation Center. And the slogan for this center is just start, because they have seen something very similar to what I was commenting here, with this question, what is the biggest obstacle to entrepreneurship? It's that you never start. But I would say that the biggest obstacle to achieving so many of our life goals is that we always think about what it is that we want to do, and we never start. We never take that first step. And so, if that first step is doing the accelerated program at Thunderbird, take that first step, and then you figure it. And this is what I teach to my students all the time. You will never figure out everything that you need to do before you take that first step. And I have so many students that are like, well, I really want to start an entrepreneurial new venture, but I've got to figure everything out first. And then they never get one going. The successful entrepreneurs are the ones that say, I have an idea. This is something I want to do. This is my dream. And they start down the path towards that dream. And then they start figuring out what they have to do to accomplish it while they're on that pathway. That's how entrepreneurship works. And that's the biggest cause of failure for entrepreneurs, is they won't take that first step. But I think that that's exactly the point for everything in our lives, is our dreams can just remain a dream. But my advice for you would be exactly the slogan of our Entrepreneurship and Innovation Center, which is just start.
Thank you very much. So guys, just start, he said. So the first step of to be a global entrepreneurs is just start it. Whether you start in your own business, or you started through the accelerated programs, perhaps, or both. Okay. Yes, exactly. So before we close the events, I would like to have photo sessions. So perhaps our friends in online, could you open your camera, and also to audiences here, please stand in here so we can have photo together with the online. Sir, please. Yes, in the middle, sir, please. With Pak Budi also, please, Pak Yuli. Sure. So there's camera in here, also in there. Okay. Is it okay? Mbak Safir, ya? Okay, on my count, 1, 2, 3, smile. 1, 2. Lastly, actually, we have a slogan for, yeah. Oh, mask off, yeah. Lastly, mask off, please. Can we take a videos, because we have a slogan in Universitas Pertamina, be global leader. So actually, so first we say Universitas Pertamina, and together say be global leaders. Okay, on my cue, yeah. 1, 2, 3. Universitas Pertamina. Okay. Do you need more? No? Okay. And last but not least, but we have some souvenirs with like, thank you, yeah, thank you to Dr. Alt and Pak Budi, Sir Budi, please. Yeah, so here's some souvenirs for you. You get it. Very nice to have you here. Thank you, sir. So, hadirin yang kami hormati, demikian keseluruhan rangkaian acara Fakulty Meetup hari ini. Apabila masih ada pertanyaan untuk teman-teman yang online dan juga offline, panitia dengan senang hati akan membantu menjawab pertanyaannya. Nanti bisa kontak langsung ke kita ya. Kami ucapkan terima kasih kepada Bapak dan Ibu perwakilan dari Thunderbird School of Global Management dan Arizona State University, Bapak dan Ibu perwakilan Sun Education, Bapak dan Ibu Universitas Pertamina, serta Bapak, Ibu, adik-adik peserta faculty meet up hari ini. We'd like to express our greatest gratitude to the representative from Thunderbird School of Global Management, Arizona State University, representative from Sun Education and Universitas Pertamina, and all participants here offline or online. Saya Ima dan seluruh panitia mohon maaf sekiranya terdapat kekurangan dalam penyelenggaraan acara hari ini. Semoga kita semua selalu diberikan kesehatan terutama di situasi pandemi seperti sekarang ini. Amin ya rabbal alamin. We'd like to apologize if there's some mistakes or misunderstanding during this event. May you always in a good health during this pandemic situations. Tetap selalu jaga protokol kesehatan dan akhir kata. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat siang. Good afternoon. Thank you all. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you ya yang online juga.
Thank you, Miss.